friends and welcome to Obsidian Soft. In today's class, we will add some checks to our sign up and login screen app that we completed in our previous class. The basic app was 100% completed in that class. New accounts were created in the database when the user provided a username and password and pressed the sign up button. When the user entered a username and password and pressed login, he or she was taken to another screen for successful login if the password against that username was the same in the database, and if the password was incorrect, an error message was shown. However, I didn't add other error checks in that code except for the incorrect password one. For example, the user could press the buttons without providing anything in the username and password fields, or he or she could even enter a username for sign up that already existed in the database. Today we will add code for these quite important error checks. So if you're watching this video without completing the basic sign up login app, then please do that first. The link for that tutorial is in the video description. Before we begin adding the error checks, let's make a copy of our login screen app that we did in the previous class. So go to projects and save project as, just going to change it to login screen with error checks. Okay. Our screen will stay exactly the same. The changes will be in the blocks section. So let's go there. Click on blocks. The code is there. As you can see that the code wasn't very complicated for the basic sign up app. We contacted the Cloud DB for storing the password as value against the tag username where the user pressed the sign up button. When it was saved successfully and the data changed event was triggered by the Cloud DB, we showed a success message to the user through the message label. In the login button code, we called Cloud DB's getValue procedure and gave the username that was entered by user as the tag. And in the getValue event triggered by the Cloud DB, we checked if the password returned as value by the Cloud DB is the same as the one entered by the user. Now for our additional error checks, we need two global variables. So go to variables, initialize global, name it user entry error, and this will be a Boolean variable. A Boolean variable is a variable that can either be true or false. Okay, so I'm just going to go to logic and get the false block, because when the app is started, the user entry error is false. As we have just started the app, so we still have to check whether there is an error or not. So user entry error is false in the very beginning. Another global variable, so just duplicate this. Now this one is button pressed, and you will know the significance of it once we do the other code. So this will be an empty text block in the very beginning. Now we will create a procedure for checking for empty username and password fields. So go to procedures and create a new procedure and call it check user entry errors. Okay. Now in the very beginning, I want that whenever this procedure is called, these are reset to these values. Okay. So go to variables, get the set block. Let me magnify this a bit and set the button pressed to an empty text block. Go to variables, get another set block, and here it is user entry error, and we are going to reset it to false. Okay. And another thing is that I want to empty my message label, because that is what is showing our error messages or success messages. So I want to empty it every time I call check user entry errors procedure. So go to message label and set this one to empty too. Okay. Now remember, we have three conditions. Either both the username and password fields are empty, the text boxes are empty, and the user presses the buttons, or one of them is empty. So we have three conditions. Okay. And we are going to check them one by one, and depending upon the situation, we will tell the user through the message label that what is wrong and where the error is. So I'm going to go to control and get this if then else if block, and here I don't want an else, I just want this if, else if, else if. Okay, so the three conditions will be individually checked one by one. Okay, so inside it, I am going to first of all check whether both the username and passwords are empty. So I need to do it inside an AND block. So go to logic and get the AND block. And inside here, I'm going to first of all compare the username with the empty text block. Okay, so get the compare block, make it equal to, go to text, get the empty block, and here this will be the username. So the username text box, so get the text from there. And the second condition, I can duplicate this because it is quite similar. But here I have to put the password one. So go to password text box and get its text. Okay. So the first condition, that both the username and password are empty, and that we are going to check using the AND block. So both are checked. Okay. And not just one of them. And if both are empty, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my message label to an appropriate message. Please enter username and password. Okay, and I am also going to set this user entry error to true because an error has happened. So I can get the block here, duplicate it from there and make it true. So what is the second thing? We can check if username is empty, because now we know that this is not true, that is both of them are not true. So now we are going to check whether the username is empty, and then we are going to check in the last else if block whether the password is empty. Okay, so duplicate this one, duplicate this, and duplicate this. Okay, and here I'm just going to ask the user that he has to enter the username. Simple. Now last condition, the password one. Else if the password is empty, so check for it. So duplicate the message, duplicate the error, and here please enter the password. Okay. Now we have to make some changes to our sign up button code. Previously we were calling store value of CloudDB and sending username and password to CloudDB. But now not only do we have to check for empty fields, but we also have to check for duplicate username. So for sign up button, first call the procedure for error checking. So I'm just going to take this one away and call the procedure this one. And I am going to use an if block from control. And here I'm going to check whether my user entry error is false or not. And only then I will continue trying to sign up. Okay. So go to logic, get the equal to block, go to variables, get block, user entry error, and if it is false. So if it is false, only then we should continue with the sign up process. And now this is important. I am going to set my button press to a text block that says sign up. Okay. And then I am going to call the get value procedure of CloudDB. The reason for that is that I want to find out by calling get value that is there a value against this username already inside the database. So if it is there, then no account should be created against that username. Otherwise it would result in duplicate accounts. So let me bring this down a bit. So I'm going to call clouddb.getValue and send it username text. So I can duplicate this from here as tag, and value if not there is empty. Okay. inside a login button code, what I'm going to do is I am going to call my procedure check entry, and let me put this on the side for a while. And again, I'm going to check for the status of my, in fact, I can just duplicate this from there. So this is exactly the same. Okay, so I can remove this one. I can put this here. So I check for user entry error, and if my user entry error status is false, then I set my global button press to login, okay, because this is the login button, and I do the same thing because this is exactly the same, okay, no difference here. So actually I can get rid of this one, this extra block. Okay, so the login button, the changes are here, that now we are checking for the user entry error status and we are setting up our button pressed to login. Otherwise, we are doing the same thing, that is we are calling the get value, same as what we were doing before. So the main change was in the sign up button, that we were, instead of calling the store value, we are actually calling the get value of CloudDB. Now the main code change is inside our got value procedure, and as you can see that get value, the call that triggers the got value, is now being called at two different places. It is called by both the login button and the sign up button, and that is why we wanted to store the status of the button pressed, because we have to differentiate between the two buttons while writing the code in the got value procedure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this if block away from here, get rid of it, because otherwise it will be too confusing. Now what happens in the got value procedure? First of all, the code is the same, that we check for the tag, that is, it is equal to the username that has been entered by the user. So relevant data has been returned by the CloudDB. Next, we are going to check what our button press status is. So go to control and get an if then else block, and we are going to compare text value, so we can duplicate this compare block, choose button pressed here, and check whether this is equal to login. Okay, so if my button pressed is login, then how will I interpret the value returned by the CloudDB? So if my CloudDB returns an empty get value against this username when the login button is pressed, then this means that this username does not even exist in the database. So we should show a relevant message. Okay. So first of all, I am going to check if my value is empty. So again, we need a control block, and I'm going to get this if then else, okay, and I'm going to again compare, so duplicate it, and here it is value, and if the value is empty, so just get rid of everything from here. Okay, so if my value is empty, then this means that the username does not exist. So I can duplicate this message label setting and change the message to this username does not exist, please sign up first. Okay, now we are going to check if the get value is not equal to the password entered by the user. Okay, so again I can get this, and here now I'm going to check and compare with password. So we can duplicate it, this password text, and make it not equal to. So first we checked whether the value was equal to empty. This means that the username did not exist. And now we are checking whether the value is not equal to the password. So this means that the user has entered an incorrect password. So we have to show a relevant message. So password word is incorrect. Okay. And the last condition is that it is equal, the get value is equal to the password. So we are going to, in that situation, do a successful login and open our main screen. So just go to Control and open another screen block and make sure that main screen is selected there. Okay. Let me reorganize the code a bit and take this too long user entry procedure on this side so we can see the got value much more clearly. Okay, now the other situation is that the button pressed has some other value, and we are going to assume that it is now the sign up value. So we don't even have to check here whether it's equal to sign up or not. Okay, so in this situation, now think about it. We should only allow a successful sign up if our get value is empty. So do you see the significance of storing the button pressed? Because in case of login, this was an error that the username did not exist in the database. But in case of sign up, this is the correct order. That is, there should not be any value returned against this username when the user presses the sign up button. So I'm going to check the same thing. And so I'm going to get an if, then else block. And I am going to first of all check if this is empty. So just duplicate that. Get value is equal to empty. And if it is empty, I am going to call the store value. Remember, I saved it here. When I removed it from the sign up button code, I can just bring it down here. So just store the username and password because there is no password against this username inside the database. So it is okay to create a new account against this username. In other situation, this means because it is not empty, so some value has been returned by the database. So this means that we have to tell the user that this is a duplicate username and someone has already saved a password against this username inside the database. So this username already exists. Please enter some other username to sign up. Okay, so I hope this was clear. And this was the final change, that is the got value event, and our data changed event will stay the same. Okay, no changes here. So this is it. Let's have a look at the demo. As you can see that all our checks are working perfectly here. This code will work on an Android device, but when I tested it on an iPhone, I realized it wasn't working. The problem was that if the username did not exist in the database, got value was returning something other than this empty text log. So all our checks were failing in this code block. And after some debugging is when you try to find errors in your code, I found out that it was actually the iPhone was returning not an empty text block, but it was actually returning a text string with the value of null. So to make it work on an iPhone, you have to add this check too, but this is just for an iPhone. If you use an Android, then don't make this change. By the way, in my next video, I will show you some tips regarding MIT App Inventor that you should remember while creating apps, and I will also tell you how I do debugging in MIT App Inventor. I used debugging to discover the iPhone problem. So the change I'm going to do is that when I'm checking for empty here, I am going to also check for the null text value. Okay, so I need an OR block for that because either it's empty or it is equal to the null string text value that is returned only by iPhones. So go to logic and get this OR block, okay, and plug in this empty one here. Let me put it back again and duplicate this. Again, this change is only for iPhone. So this is what was being returned by CloudDB in the case of iPhone. and which is the other place that we are checking for empty. So just remove this one and duplicate the entire if condition. So here we have replaced the simple comparison with the empty text block to an OR block. So I hope you like this video and do share it with your friends and family. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly do so that you don't miss any of the great things I have planned for you. I teach detailed practical tutorials on coding, mental maths and app development on my channel, and I publish new videos every week on Tuesdays. Thank you for watching my video. Have a good day and goodbye.